the most brutal, fearless, violent and powerful boss a crime syndicate has ever had. Unlike Pablo Escobar, who usually lets you choose between plata or plomo, silver or bullets, the boss of bosses of Sicilian Mafia has never given any choice to his victims. There is no love or feelings in this story, only brutality. The brutality of Salvatore Riina, il capo dei capi. Salvatore Riina was born in Corleone, a small town approximately 100 kilometres from Palermo, on the 16th of November 1930. Riina's family was extremely poor, which isn't uncommon in rural areas of Sicily. Both parents were farmers, mainly living on what the land and hard work as farmers was giving them. So in order to make a few extra bucks for his family, Riina's father tried to collect some gunpowder from an old unexploded World War II bomb that was found in the vicinity of his land. And during that process, the bomb exploded, killing his father and his 7-year-old brother, and severely mutilating his other brother. As a result, a young Salvatore Riina, at the tender age of 13 years old, was already the head of his family, with the not easy duty of providing food for his mother and brother, who also was disabled as a result of the explosion that killed his father. And he was in an extremely poor land with little or no future. Now, we usually prefer to avoid reporting legends or events which are not well proven or founded on facts. However, according to the myth, Riina only cried once in his life, and that was on the occasion of the funeral of his father and brother. And this was apparently the only time that people saw Riina in tears. And given sheer determination and ruthlessness and the criminal profile of Riina, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this legend is totally true. So back to our story. It was working in the fields a few months after losing his father that Salvatore Riina had an encounter which would completely change his life forever. Now, as you can imagine, Corleone was a poor town where most of the people were farmers without a regular job because they often didn't own any land, and were also just employed on a day-to-day basis by landowners for very little money. Well, at that time, there were no laws against child labour, and it was also common for kids to skip school and try to get small or minor jobs or activities in exchange for a piece of bread or something else to feed themselves and eventually their families for a day. Now, when we say work to get a piece of bread, we're not using a metaphor. We mean that word work in every single sense of its meaning. After World War II, Italy was a poor and half-destroyed country, and the south of Italy, including Sicily, was stricken by huge amounts of poverty all over. Amongst those kids there were two in Corleone who every day tried to look for a job in the fields just to get paid with a piece of bread: Bernardo Provenzano and Calogero Bagarella. Now, Provenzano and Bagarella were both sons of farmers and found a chance to work on the land owned by the mother of Salvatore Riina, who, as you know, was a widow at that point. And this is when Riina, who obviously was working in the fields with his mother, first met the other two young men. And just after a few days, the future boss of the Sicilian Mafia had a bright idea. Instead of working in the fields, which was a tiring and low-paid job, they could steal from richer families of Corleone and formed a gang. The idea was obviously well accepted by the other two kids, and within just a few weeks of the first encounter, Riina, Bagarella and Provenzano were a solid alliance, built to commit minor petty crimes. Now, arguably this story seems like the idea of some great Hollywood scriptwriter, but it's not. This is reality. And although we're not condoning or glorifying crime, it is clear that the criminal motivation stemmed from absolute poverty versus greed or other motives. Now, the initial core of the powerful Corleonese family was actually formed by chance, just by a poor orphan and two starving kids, who agreed to steal eggs and chicken just to feed themselves and their families.